Okay, so with credit, this is very important. I feel like a lot of people in our community definitely should know more about. First, I want to explain what credit is and pretty much just give you guys just the fundamentals of credit. Credit is pretty much a representation of your reputation as a borrower. And what that means is the lower your credit score is, the less likely lenders and banks are willing to let you borrow it, because a low credit score shows that you don't make payments on time, or you make late payments, or don't make a payment in full, things like that, versus having a higher credit score. You know, they're willing to approve you for this car loan, they're willing to approve you for this home loan, or pretty much any kind of credit you're applying for. And your credit scores range from a 300 bare minimum all the way up to an 850, which is considered a perfect credit score. And it's important to know your credit scores. And it's important to understand that there's two types of credit scores, first and foremost. You have your FICO score, and you also have a FAKO score. Now, your FICO score is what the banks and the lenders are going to actually pull when you're trying to apply for some credit. So if you're trying to get a home loan, or you're trying to apply for a car loan, they're going to pull the FICO score, the FICO credit score with those important type of loans. Your FAKO score is pretty much your Credit Karmas or any free credit-based applications that you can get. The FAKO scores are pretty much just for educational purposes, and they provide you those things for free most of the time because they're getting your data and pretty much selling it to other companies. So I won't say it's not good to go by those, but your FICO is the one you really want to be concerned with versus your Credit Karmas or any other credit applications that you can get pretty much for free. Let me see, make sure I keep on track. So you can find your score, your FICO scores. I personally use Experian.com. I think they charge like $20 a month for their services, but there's many different resources that you can find your credit scores on, and you can get. And like I said, Experian is just one of the three major credit bureaus. You can find your credit scores for TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian on different other sites. Right here that you got on the flyer is creditchecktotal.com. You can pay, I think, $1 to sign up for that, and then after you pay that $1 for signing up, you can spend at least I think it's $20 monthly service fee to be able to have access to those credit scores at any time. So now that you guys know your credit scores and where to find those, it's also important to know what your credit report is. Have anybody ever checked their credit report? A few people. So what your credit report is pretty much a list of everything that you have credit on. So if you financing some furniture, if you got a home loan, a car loan, or even if you just went to the bank to borrow $500, that's going to end up on your credit report. And it's important to keep up with those credit reports because sometimes they do have false things on there that you can get disputed and knocked off and can impact your credit score positively, especially if it's not supposed to be on there. You can get it disputed off. But you can check your credit reports once every year for free at annualcreditreport.com. So for those of you that haven't checked your credit reports, I encourage y'all to do that before the end of the year because you got that one free chance to do that. Cool. Okay, so lastly, I want to talk about how your credit scores are calculated. A lot of people see their credit scores, but they don't actually know how it's actually calculated. And so the way your credit score is calculated, I think we have the graph on there. Is the graph on there? Okay, great. So 35% of your credit score is calculated by payment history. And this is the most simplest thing with dealing with credit, but this is the thing that can hurt or help your credit the most, your payment history. And all that is whether you're paying your payments on time or not, paying them in full or not as well. Payment history can hurt your credit. And just to be transparent with you guys, I like to keep it real with everybody. I had something on my credit report that we just talked about that I didn't know was on my credit report. And so because I didn't know it was on my credit report, of course I didn't pay it. Not paying that one payment knocked my credit score down 86 points.
Oh, wow.
86 points. And I was too hurt. I got that alert and I almost cried, y'all. But that's what I'm trying to emphasize to you guys is that it's important to make these payments on time. Even if you don't make them on time, not make them on time, even if you don't pay the full payment, at least paying something on time will help you or hurt you in a major way. Like I just gave you the example. So make sure you guys are paying your payments on time. That is 35% of your credit score. That's how it's calculated. 30% of it is due to your amounts owed or your credit utilization. And that's more triggered towards your credit cards and things like that. And that goes to maxing out those credit cards. Understand that maxing out your credit cards doesn't mean that, let's say you have a limit of $1,000 on a credit card. Maxing out doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend $1,000. You can spend $800 or $900 on a credit card and it can be considered maxed out. And so the rule of thumb on credit cards is to spend 30% or less on those credit cards. So if you have that limit of $1,000, you really only want to spend $300 or less on those credit cards to be in good standings with the lenders and the banks and things like that. And when I'm talking about that, I hear something that was just on the top of my head.
Not credit.
No, that's not it. Oh, if you do have to make a big purchase on your credit card, let's say like you do have $1,000 limit and you want to spend $700 on a vacation or something like that, you can still do that, but you gotta make sure that you pay that payment in full once that statement comes out, because if you don't, you can make those minimum payments, but you allow interest to accrue, and you have revolving credit. And so what that looks like to the bank is that you're living off of your credit card because you're allowing those balances to stay on that credit card for so long, and you're not being able to pay it off within a month's time or 2 months' time. So that's 30% of your credit score. 15% is your length of credit history. And what that looks like is the longer you've had credit established, the better it looks to banks, especially if you're making payments on time, especially if you're making those payments in full on time. It looks good to the banks and the lenders. And for example, shout out to my parents. When I was in high school, I think 17, 18 years old, they put me down as an authorized user on something that they were financing just to put it in my name to establish credit for me way before I could even tell you guys what credit was. And so what that did for me, now that I'm 24 years old, if I go and apply for a loan, the lenders will look at my credit report and see that, okay, he had credit established way back in 2012, it's 2019, he's made good payments, he's paid in full. They won't have a problem lending to me because they see that I've had that history and that I've been making my payments and things on time. Versus someone, that may be 24 that never was taught about credit, never was put down as an authorized user. We can both go to the same place and try to apply for a loan. Because they don't have any credit history, they may not get approved because the banks are looking at them like, we don't know if you can make payments on time. You don't have any history to prove that you can make payments on time. So for those of you that don't have any established credit, I would strongly encourage you and recommend to go get some credit established so you can start building up that credit history. So later on in life, if you need a loan and you're trying to get approved for a home, you'll have that history down. And also for parents in here, if you got smaller, younger children, put them down as authorized users on your credit cards. Do things to set them up for success once they become young adults and try to get their first apartments and their first cars and things like that. Okay, so 10% is due to new credit or inquiries. So, and what those are is every time you go and apply, whether it's for a store credit card, JCPenney's, or wherever you shop at, if you apply for any type of credit card, that is what you consider a new inquiry. And what they have is soft pulls and hard pulls. The soft pulls, you really don't have to worry about your score dropping too much. It may drop a point or two, but with the hard pulls, it can drop it pretty drastically, 10 points or more. I remember when we were shopping for our house, I had to do a couple of hard pulls for them to pull my credit, and they did knock it down a few points. But 10%, that's 10% of your score is applying for new credit. So when you are trying to get credit cards or get approved for home loans, try not to apply for too many different places all at one time, because that can negatively impact your score as well. The last thing is the credit mix. And the credit mix is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mixture of all the different lines of credit that you have. So as I mentioned earlier, you might have a line of credit for financing some furniture. You might have a home loan. You might have an auto loan. You might have all these different lines of credit, and this can impact you positively or negatively as well. It can impact you in a positive way by saying that if bank's looking at your credit report and they say, okay, he has all these different credit mixes, but if he's paying on his house on time, if he's paying on his car on time, his furniture payments, he can handle many different types of credit lines at one time and still keep them in good standing. They don't have a problem lending to you if you ever need it. Versus if you have the same amount of credit lines, but you're late on your home payment, but you pay your car note on time, but you're also late on your finance payments, you kind of look unstable and kind of look, not too balanced with your credit mix. So that in that way, it can negatively impact your credit score as well. So those are the ways your credit scores are calculated. So just in case you guys didn't know, that is how you can keep track of your score. But like I said, the payment history is pretty much the most important thing. If you make your payments on time and in full, you pretty much don't have anything to worry about when it comes to your credit, and that is what can knock your credit score down the most. So I want to make sure I emphasize that again. And that's pretty much it for me. Like I said, I just wanted to give you guys a general. Am I missing something? Oh, okay. I just want to give you guys a general, some fundamentals about finances and credit. Didn't want to go into too much detail because everybody has a different situation. But I felt it was important. Like I said, a lot of us don't get taught this. I want to at least spark that change and get that going. But did anybody learn anything new about? Did everybody know all of this already? No? Okay, great. And that was the main thing I wanted to get out of this. I wanted to aim for. At least teaching you guys something that you may have not already known as well. And as you can see, Elevated Enterprises is a company we're starting. Going to be launching in 2020, but we are focusing on helping people work on their finances and build their credit and things like that. And we will, like I said, be launching this in 2020, but because you guys chose to come here and take some of your time out, we will be doing free credit and finance consultations for anybody that needs help. Feel free to get with me or Tay after this, and we can schedule something. But most importantly, we just want to see our communities be more informed and educated on these type of matters and shift the culture, elevate everyone around us. So that's pretty much all I got. And thank you guys for coming out, taking the time to invest in yourself, especially the young people. I love to see the young people coming out.
What you learn, Adrian?
I especially love seeing the young children coming out and investing in themselves and learning these type of things. So, because not, like I said at the beginning, not only for us, but they're gonna have kids one day, and if they have the knowledge, we can shift the whole entire culture. Reverse this curse that's going on within our communities and our generation. So, again, thank y'all for y'all time. I appreciate it. Mother, I appreciate you having me, giving me this opportunity. Thank you to my wife. She helped me out with a lot of this. So definitely got my daughter, all of y'all, my family. Thank y'all very much.